Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay.
Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay. My name is host Mike Jokum. I am joined by Jess and Matt, and we have plenty to discuss today. As always, this week is brought to you by gripmat.com. The world's first flexible non-slip tool mat for the person who loves working on their car. Use promo code PLP10 for 10% off your order. So we'll start with just a short Rolex 24 recap as Jess and I were down there covering the event for you guys. We will have a longer recap at some point once Jess and I catch up on sleep and we can actually remember what happened. But Jess, any thoughts on the race? Matt, I'm not sure if you're able to watch it, but what did you think of covering your first Rolex?
I'm still trying to wake up. Other than that, it was fun. I had been several times before, but a lot of fun to be able to cover it, get a little bit different perspective on things. Lots of people at the beginning of the race, so that was fun to see everybody coming out for it. And geez, the race and as a whole, like we saw some history being made, and that green flag stretch in the middle of the evening was intense. I can't remember, it was like 9 hours almost. But yeah, it was crazy. Very good race and very excited with the outcome.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm biased. I'd like to think I'm pretty unbiased, but I thought you guys did a really good job. It made not watching the race a lot easier, given the updates that were circulating from you guys, as well as a couple of other really good follows on Twitter who were keeping us up to date. So that was really good of, everybody who was live tweeting for the marathon there. So that was really cool. Some highlights that kind of stood out to me, obviously the Elio incident. If it was anybody else, I'd probably say, that one driver was at fault. But since it was Castroneves, I'm a little inclined to think that there was a little bit of a 50-50. I mean, Castroneves didn't need to. We'll save that for another day, I guess. But it was cool to see him as passionate as he was afterwards, because I do feel like the other driver was probably more in the wrong. So I guess it's not really 50-50. But the rumble strips being torn up, that was weird. Never. I mean, it's not something that happens too often. So it's poor rumble strips, and then I mean, obviously with the results, it was a good diverse mix, and Scott Dixon doing Scott Dixon things with, his teammates, obviously. So that was cool. But yeah, my tip of the cap to you guys for your coverage. It was outstanding. And hopefully we get some more IMSA races this year, because that was awesome from you two.
Yeah, thank you. And just real quick before I give my thoughts, obviously Wayne Taylor Racing won overall and the DPI class. LMP2 was our IndyCar pals in Dragon Speed Racing and Ben Hanley. GTLM was the Ray Hall team, not the non-Colton Herta car driven by John Edwards and co. And then the GTD class was Paul Miller Racing and one of the Lamborghinis, Brian Sellers and Corey Lewis being the notable drivers that I recognized from that class before this weekend. So moving on, yes, covering the event was a lot of fun, a little bit tiring. It was not particularly comfortable sleeping in a media center for all of, 90 minutes, but you make it work. It was a lot of fun. I hope to get to Road America for the IMSA race. I think it's in early August, and then Petit Le Mans at the end of the year. And obviously whatever IndyCar and IMSA events kind of cross paths. I know Detroit and Long Beach and a few others. I'll try to pull some double coverage while we're there. Matt, you mentioned Scott Dixon. Scott Dixon won overall and won the DPI class, and his stints were, I know this comes to no shock, fantastic as always. Is there anything Scott Dixon can't win?
Nope. And it's my firm belief that if you put him in a Mercedes car next to Lewis Hamilton, that Dixon will win 9 out of the 10 races if you gave him 3 or 4 hour test session to get used to the car. I think he wins at everything, and it's not a coincidence. The guy is insanely good, and to see him race as well as he did, obviously it's a team effort, but to see him race very fast and very well again, it's a pattern that he's developed over the years that people just can't deny. So good for him. I think he can win at anything he puts his mind to and straps into, and he's just a phenomenal talent.
Maybe dirt cars. I don't know that we've seen him in a dirt car that I can remember, at least. But other than that, yeah, no, I have to agree. I can't think of a single thing. And honestly, probably given the chance, if he had a couple races on dirt, he'd probably pick that up and be able to handle it as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess I'll give you that one, Jess. I don't really know. I'm sure he could pick up and after some practice or a race or two, win at that as well. He's now got 2 class wins at the Rolex 24 and an overall win. So all in all, it was a fantastic event. As Jess mentioned, there was a green flag stint of almost 8 hours. I'm just looking it up right now. Overall, there was over 800 laps turned, maybe close to 900 laps turned, and just short of 3,000 miles total. So it was a really great experience. I'm sure we'll be back doing it next year. But with that, we'll have a bigger preview once we can kind of wrap our heads around what happened. And one more thing before we move on.
Who fell asleep first?
It wasn't me.
What time did you get to?
5 a.m.?
Yeah, it was right around 5. So he made it much longer than either one of us said we would make it. But yeah, he did fall asleep first.
When is that, like 16 hours during the race or thereabouts?
Roughly, give or take.
That's pretty impressive. I don't think I could do that. I'm not. Did you guys just like wake up at 8 a.m. the race day, or how'd that work?
9.
Yeah, 9:15 or so. So it was by the time I got home to Philadelphia at 3 a.m. on Monday, it had been 40 hours ish or something like that of slept in a media center office chair for 2 hours and the airport floor at the Orlando airport with a bunch of screaming babies for about 45 minutes. So it was pretty rough. I cherished every moment of it. I would do it again in a heartbeat, but it's very challenging.
We may or may not be planning some ways to make it a little easier next year.
Do I want to know how much caffeine you guys ingested?
Not as much as you would have thought, honestly.
I mean, I did see a picture of you tweeting out 4 Bang drinks.
Yes, those were for both of us, not just for me.
Okay, I was like, God, you were literally going to need to see a cardiologist after this race.
No, and I actually only ended up having one, and that was on the car ride on the way to the airport because I didn't think I would be able to make my flight if I didn't have one. I thought I would fall asleep. But I think we had 5 cups of coffee or something. I mean, it wasn't terrible.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. I think I had one of those Bang energy drinks maybe towards the morning hours of the race. I forget.
Yeah, it was probably 7 or 8 in the morning.
And then one in the rental car to get to the airport because I was starting to doze off while driving. And I hear that is not safe to do. So with that, we will wrap it up and move on for now.
How many times did the car tell you that you needed to consider taking a break?
Like every 34 seconds while we were driving from Orlando.
Jeez.
It was brutal.
I'm glad you're still alive.
We made it, guys. We made it. All right. So we will move on. Going to talk a little bit about Santino Ferrucci. He did get the Dale Coyne Vassar Sullivan seat that Bourdais used to have with Sealmaster as the sponsor. So that kind of makes him the team leader now, as he does have 1 year of experience. What do you guys think about that? Can he handle the pressure that he's going to be under now?
I personally, I'm kind of skeptical about him stepping up to be a team leader, if I'm being completely honest. It's just, given his age, given his quote unquote lack of experience, I mean, I don't know if I'd count 1 year as being a veteran per se. So it's not like he's a seasoned veteran that can guide Pelu through the ropes. I mean, I know it's better than nothing. I mean, having one season is much better than being a rookie per se, but still the whole coin situation as a whole, just it just makes me skeptical about what they're going to do this year. And having Ferrucci lead your team, no disrespect to him, it's not a talent thing or anything like that. It's just I think he just needs more time behind the wheel before he kind of steps into that Bourdais role. So a little skeptical. I mean, obviously I'm keeping an open mind, but I do have some worries ahead of the season.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair to be, potentially concerned about it. Ferrucci gives me a vibe that he knows what he's talking about. He's a quick learner, as we saw with the Chili Bowl. I know he didn't really do as well as he or we would have hoped, but I think he can handle the added pressure. I'm not against. I won't go to our next bullet point just yet, but I think he can handle it. Will it mean that the team is all of a sudden going to do better than we thought because Ferrucci is the leader? Maybe not, but I think it won't hurt having Ferrucci as the leader. He's a smart kid. He's done better than everybody has expected every step of the way. So I think he's going to continue down that path.
Yeah, I have to kind of agree with that he's done better than, everybody expected him to. So I think that, will kind of play into his favor. Do I think he can handle it? Yes. Do I think that it's going to be a little bit more stressful for him? Absolutely. I think he's got some big shoes to fill for sure. But I definitely think that he had good role model last year. So I think that if he just kind of tries to play things kind of the way they were before, obviously things have changed a little bit, but I think he'll be okay. And on the same note, do you guys think that they should bring somebody in to kind of be a coach to them or, help them out behind the scenes since they both are relatively new?
Yeah, I almost jumped the gun on that when I was talking in the last point there. Yes, I think it'd be a good thing for, and I don't know who off the top of my head because, well, I didn't think that far in advance, and I know there's not a second Dario Franchitti out there, which would be amazing for them, but somebody who's been around the paddock for many years, who's raced maybe Oriol Servia can help them out. Somebody who's got that experience in setting up cars and knowing what to expect in changing conditions, I think would even help Santino Ferrucci, or at least help Pelou learn things that maybe Ferrucci hasn't learned yet. So I think it would be a very good idea for them to do something like that.
I was thinking something along the lines of maybe like Alex Tagliani, who's never my favorite driver as a driver, but I loved as a person. And obviously he has some fantastic insights given his, I don't know what it ended at, 17 years of racing. So racing in IndyCar, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to have somebody. I mean, you look at Team Penske, I mean, they still have Rick Mears around. And I think that their three drivers would be the last drivers that need any coaching. So I think it's never a bad thing to have someone who can lend you an extra voice and kind of help you out with things. So for sure, I think they definitely should look at bringing in some veteran who's either retired in the last couple of years or who's just a part-timer nowadays, like a Servia, because that definitely I don't think could hurt them at all.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. There's always room for an extra set of eyes pretty much in anything you do. So I think that they would definitely benefit from it. Not really sure who would be a good fit, but I have a feeling that they will find that person and they'll get them in place pretty quickly.
Yeah, and we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll see if we spot anybody at the paddock next year or anything like that, and let you guys know if we ever see anything. But moving on to more driver news, Charlie Kimball has signed a full-time deal with AJ Foyt Enterprises with the help of his longtime sponsor, Novo Nordisk. He will be in the number 4 cars, so that was the only announcement, although someone shared today, I believe it was Eric Smith, shared today that Tony Kanaan is making an announcement Thursday morning. So we're recording tonight on a Tuesday. So 2 days from now, I'm sure we'll touch on it next week's episode, whatever it may be. So probably something to do with the 14 car. We don't know what capacity, but we'll fill you guys in on that. But for now, yes, Foyt has announced the number 4 car. So that's definitely good news as far as just having an entry employment for the folks that work there. But what are your guys' overall thoughts about Kimball to the Foyt car?
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. They said they wanted to kind of shake things up, and I kind of feel like this does that because he's a little different than what they would normally pick. So, I mean, I think that it can be a good thing as long as everybody works together. And I know that's kind of, been their goal is to get a good team in place. So that's what they got to work on is the whole team aspect, in my opinion.
Yeah, very good point. I think it's a good thing for both sides. It gives Kimball a full year, which, it's tough to get into a rhythm when you're racing, I don't know, once a month essentially is what he raced last year with 7 races. And as we saw last year, he really was much improved over what we were used to from the Kimball of the past few years, where he was running to the back of guys and squeezing willpower off the side at Watkins Glen a couple of years ago and things like that. So maybe this does provide a little bit of help for the Foyt team in terms of his experience, and maybe it'll help coach a young driver or two along the way.
Yeah, I'm probably going to regret saying this, but I mean, right now it honestly doesn't look so bad. I know he's prone to his moments and whatnot, but there's been a lot of drivers in the past that have been prone to certain moments on the track that make you scratch your head, but then they also weren't that likable off the track. And with Charlie Kimball, like, he's one of the nicest guys of all time. I think for me, that kind of gives him the benefit of the doubt. Like, I don't mind seeing him around him. He was at every race last year anyways with Carlin, just around the paddock. And he's just, always got a smile and always a fun guy to be around. It's just some of those on-track mistakes are pretty aggravating at times. But if there's anybody that would buy a ride right now, I think Charlie Kimball would be the guy I would have the least issue with. So honestly, it's going to be good to see him at the track. He's just a really likable guy. With Kimball, obviously you guys touched on him improving last year and not making as many incidents off on the track and causing too much carnage. Will this at all stabilize Foyt? Do you think that if he keeps a clean nose, is he going to, elevate Foyt to, I wouldn't say higher levels because they're kind of at the bottom already, but do you think he can help them improve at all?
I mean, kind of touching on what you just said, there's nowhere else to go but up, so it can't get worse, I think. But I know in the press conference last week, it was last Wednesday, I guess, they mentioned, we'd like to, at some point run consistently in the top 10. I think if they're running consistently in the top 12 or 13, maybe making it to that second round of qualifying, like they mentioned, not necessarily every race, but handful of times, maybe in half the races, I think that is a huge improvement. And I think somebody like Charlie Kimball, who's been around, knows how to work the setup of a car and get something out of a less than ideal car like he did at Carlin more than once last year, will be a huge win and help Foyt kind of start to improve somewhat.
If we see the Charlie Kimball of last year, then yes. If we see the Charlie Kimball of previous years where he struggled to finish a race because he was always in some sort of incident, then no. And unfortunately, I do kind of think that would actually be going backwards for them. So hopefully I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that we see the Charlie Kimball of last year, that he carries over that consistency. And, I would say that finishing, like you said, in the top, I'll even say to 15th on a consistent basis would be a big improvement for them. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed for that team.
Yeah, my unfortunate personal opinion is that given the recent history of Foyt, I honestly don't think it matters who they put in the car, because if they don't get the behind the scenes stuff figured out, you could put anybody in those cars right now and it's not going to matter. I mean, they had a season with Foyt and Munoz and they were still in the back, and that's 2 incredibly talented drivers. So, I mean, like I said, if they don't have the behind the scenes stuff figured out, like if they didn't hire the right personnel or develop the right resources and setups and wind tunnel and et cetera this off season, then I think they're going to be in for a long season no matter who's driving the car. So That's kind of the doom and gloom opinion. I'd love to be proven wrong on that one, or I'd love to see if they've made some strides in the offseason behind the scenes, but a little skeptical on that front. And then as far as the 14 car, we touched on that Kanaan has an announcement on Thursday. Are we thinking Kanaan a full season, Dalton Kellett splitting the races with him? There's been rumors of Sebastian Bourdais maybe popping in the seat, maybe insert driver here, somebody that Jess and I and Mike have never heard of. What do you guys think about the 14?
Just gut feeling. I'm feeling like he's probably not going to get a full season. It would be nice because you guys know I always kind of tend to pull for him, but I just feel like it's not in the cards. And frankly, I feel like at this point in his life, he's probably starting to want to spend more time with his kids and things like that. And who can blame him for that? So that's just a gut feeling. We'll see how Thursday plays out.
I'm very curious to see what Thursday brings, especially given the chatter we heard around the IMSA paddock about that seat this past weekend at the Rolex. So my guess is going to be, obviously, when everybody is listening to this on Friday, it's already going to be public news. So I'm going to say this is the Tony Kanaan retirement tour. He's going to do, the ovals and maybe Long Beach and Laguna, something along those lines, like the iconic, the big tracks that are going to bring a ton of fans, and that's going to wrap up a outstanding career for Tony Kanaan. And then we might see Matt's favorite driver, Dalton Kellett, get some races. I think that's possibly likely. I don't know how much funding he brings, but I think that's a strong possibility.
There's enough funding to keep him in Indy Lights for 4 or 5 years or whatever it was. So don't need to beat the dead horse. I shared my opinion on Kellett about 3 or 4 episodes ago, if you guys want to go listen to that. But I do think I don't want to go on a ledge and say Kanaan will get a full season. I just don't think it's in the cards based on the chatter we've been hearing all off season. So yeah, I'm going to stick to some sort of part-time, definitely probably the 500 for sure. But beyond that, who knows? And then one final question, just real quick, assuming we have each race, we might have 24-ish cars, but let's just narrow down to say we'll have 22 full-time cars in IndyCar next year. Where do you think Charlie Kimball's going to finish in the championship?
14th.
I was going to say 16th.
I'm going to say 19th. So let me go ahead and jot that down. Kimball, Mike said 14th. Jess said 16th, and I said 19th. Okay. And then I did want to do one quick thing before we toss it to Mike. Obviously, Sunday was a pretty sad day in the world with the loss of Kobe Bryant and the 8 others in the helicopter crash. So I just wanted to give my well wishes to anybody who was impacted by that crash and accident. Such a devastating loss of life, and it was a really sad event in our lifetime. A lot of people were comparing it to other things, but to have that sudden loss was really sad. So just wishing everybody well, and hopefully we can all heal as a community here.
Yeah, very well said. Obviously, Kobe was a Philadelphia native, but the other people involved, the college baseball coach and his family, it's just really sad and really kind of was unfortunate. Jess and I found out, I think, on the trolley back from the media center out to our car, which you're exhausted, but enjoyed the race, and definitely was tough to focus on driving back to the airport after that. So I hope his family, Kobe's family, and everybody who was involved's family is doing as well as they possibly can.
Yeah, got to send them all well wishes. It's not just the Bryants who were affected, but other families were also affected. So want to make sure that everybody that was affected, friends, family, obviously colleagues, just know that our thoughts are with them, and hopefully they can find some peace during this time.
With that being said, we will give some shout outs to Team Pit Lane members. Let's start with Keith Tyron, Mike Silver, and last but not least, our buddy George. I was looking through the list here. So thank you to all 3 of them. And we will continue on with Stump the Hosts.
Guess who's got it this week, guys? Awesome. Good guess. I did a lot, and I'm talking like a lot of math for this, like a whole sheet of paper. So I hope you guys have your thinking caps on. You guys each get one guess apiece because I don't want to take forever. But I did the math, and I now know how many miles were run by every car in this year's 24 Hours of Daytona. Total. Also individually by car, if you wanted it that way. But I will let you know that the car that ran the fewest amount of laps ran 537.56 miles. And the cars, plural, there were 3 of them, that ran the most laps ran 2,965.48 miles. So total of all 38 cars, and you can round up, what is your best guess on the amount of miles run in the 24 Hours of Daytona?
You have the most thought out questions, so props to you for that, but also I hate you for that. I am going to guess and say 108,550.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the under. I'm going to say 79,000.
Okay, so you guys kind of got to split the difference here, but it was 90,202.64 miles.
Mike, what'd you say?
I don't remember 108.
Oh, yeah. That's me right there.
But literally, look at this. Y'all, like, it's ridiculous.
Don't they have like some sort of press release with that info on it?
Probably, but why would I look that up?
Because I know you were saying earlier, like, math's not my strong suit.
No, that's why I was saying it, because I'm like, math is hard when you have had no sleep, and I just did a stupid amount of math. So,
oh, Lord.
Well, nice work, Jess, on all of that research. For those curious, maybe we can get Jess to take a picture and post it with the episode on Friday. We will move on. The topic of international races came up at some point over the weekend. Roger Penske stated that he does not currently want to expand internationally, partially because 95% of their sponsors are US based. He is, however, open to expansion in North America within Mexico and Canada. So first off, what do you guys think of Roger's thought process there? Is it the right way to think about it? Do you have any concerns?
Don't really have any concerns. I mean, he looks at things a lot differently than the average bear would. So I think you got to give him credit where credit's due. And I'm sure he's thinking, long term. And right now, maybe it's just not the best time. I got to trust him on this one.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I mean, where there's certain venues out there that I think would really thrive, specifically Surfers Paradise, but that seemed like pulling teeth to try to figure it out. And if we had the option of spending, 4 months negotiating with whoever in Australia to get Surfers Paradise back, or spending 6 solid weeks to get to Mexico City, Montreal, Calgary, etc., I think the more efficient approach would probably be to just try to secure a race in Mexico or Canada, or even another one in the United States. So I'm not necessarily a fan of the idea. I think, it'd be nice to go international at some point, but I definitely can't fault the logic.
Yeah, the logic is spot on. I think maybe this year, was it 2 years ago, Matt started the In J Fryer We Trust. Do we need a In Roger We Trust sort of hashtag shirt combo going or something like that? I'll work on that. I agree. I think it's the right thing to do. So moving on here, the other thing he did mention real quick is date equity is incredibly important and wants to focus on, continuing IndyCar's North American growth. So with that being said, we do have a fan question relating to this from Twitter. And Jeff Lacey wants to know, is Roger Penske doing the right thing by focusing on North American races / the fan base rather than growing any international races?
The logic doesn't hurt. It's something that's been weighed back and forth for years. I mean, I'm of the opinion that the fan base within America is growing at such a slow rate that I don't think having an international race here and there would hurt, especially thinking to those races at Brazil. I mean, did you see the crowds at those races? They were insane. And that would be the same if it was in, the now vacated former Mexican F1 circuit. They're not going back there, are they? Might have to Google that one. Anyways, going to Mexico City, the amount of fans that would go to that race, especially if Pato was there, it'd be insane. So I'm not one to completely buy into the growing the base at home is the best strategy. Keeping the sponsors happy is a good strategy, but growing base, I don't know if I buy that as much.
I definitely think he's doing the right thing. I think that he needs to kind of sit and make sure all of that his marbles are in the right spot before he goes out and does something crazy like moves, let's say, I don't know, 5 races to international venues. I think that he's got the long haul in mind, like I said earlier. So I think he's just going to kind of look at things and evaluate and maybe in a couple of years revisit the idea. So I think for the time being that, yes, he's doing the right thing.
Completely agree with Jess there. Unfortunately, I guess this is one I do want to agree on and not disagree just for the fun of it. But the other thing is there's NASCAR news coming out that NASCAR fans are really frustrated about. I won't go deep into that, but IndyCar is in a great spot to take some of those frustrated NASCAR fans. And NASCAR is, solely North American based. So I think it's, Rogers can scoop away some of those fans. It's definitely the right path to take. So with that, we'll ask one more question here and move on to plenty more fan questions. If you guys had a choice, would you start with a race in Mexico or Canada?
I think I would go with Mexico. I think with some of the fans we've seen coming with, Pato Award and things, I think it seems like they would have a pretty good following, and Canada already does have a race. So let's go Mexico.
I want to be selfish and say Canada just because I practically live in Canada already. So it's not too far from me. And especially if it was in Winnipeg, Calgary. I know Calgary is still far, but Calgary is probably closer to me than Mexico City. Montreal, give me an excuse to go back to Montreal. So I think that'd be my choice. I'd pick Canada. Do you guys like the hashtag be like Penske?
No. No.
There was an attempt. Come on, Jess, you're holding it back. I was trying to think like the worst hashtag it could be.
You succeeded in that regard.
Yeah, good job on coming up with the worst one. We will go off of this to come up with a hashtag later. But right now, we're going to move on to some more fan questions. I have one from Danny Vaughn on the Facebook page, and he's also Team Pit Lane. Will we see any IMSA teams in our IndyCar anytime soon?
That's a good question. I could see somebody like Wayne Taylor Racing who mentioned naturally before they won the race how frustrated he was with BOP, although it seemed to hurt the Acuras and a couple other of the GTD cars much more than it hurt Wayne Taylor. But I think Wayne Taylor would be a great get for IndyCar. So I'm going to say maybe, but I don't think it's going to be in the next 2 or 3 years. I think that's more of a maybe in Roger Penske's 5-year plan is to get one of the big IMSA owners over to IndyCar.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, because it depends on what kind of time frame we're putting on this. If it's the next 5 years, yeah, sure, absolutely. I don't think that's out of the realm. I mean, if you had asked me last year or 2 years ago, I probably would have said no. But with Dragon Speed coming aboard, who knows? I don't think a whole lot of people saw that coming, and they seem intent on establishing themselves in IndyCar. So, yeah, Wayne Taylor Racing would be super cool. I believe JDC is still in IMSA in some capacity, and they did Road to Indy. I don't know if they still do Road to Indy, but they did Road to Indy, and they are, last time I checked, Minnesota-based. So shout out to them. That's super cool. We don't see too many teams based in Minnesota. So yeah, if I pulling for the hometown crowd, I'd say it would be cool to see JDC and IndyCar at some point.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with a short answer here, and I'm going to say no. It would be nice, yes, but do I see it happening? No, not really. At least not in the short term here. But I've seen stranger things happen. So maybe like way down the road. So yeah, we'll leave it at that.
All right. Next up is a critically acclaimed author, Stephen King, who is a Team Pit Lane member. Thank you so much, Stephen. He wants to know our big preseason hope for all of us for the 2020 season. What's the one thing we're super hopeful for in the IndyCar 2020 season?
I hope that you all get enjoyment out of our YouTube channel that we're going to be starting here before too long.
Okay, since Jess stole my answer, as I looked at the camera sitting next to me right now, I will go with, I hope everybody finds, last year we had the Harding Steinbrenner. This year it's Dale Coyne Racing. I think we made that an announcement on social media last week. We haven't actually talked about it on air. But also I hope everybody enjoys a look into the Road to Indy with HMD Motorsports. The inside look of the Road to Indy side of things hasn't been done a ton. So I hope everybody gets enjoyment out of all of the extra content.
My real answer is I hope everybody gets to experience a new race that they haven't ever been to. For me personally, that'll be the Grand Prix of Indy. I've never seen cars take a right turn in Indianapolis before, so that'll be pretty cool. And then my non-serious answer is I hope everybody tries a new piece of cheese this year that they've never tried before, because I'm making it a personal mission. I had provolone 2 weeks ago.
Good job.
I know. This is so out of the ordinary. My friends, for one of the NFL playoff games, he made this like sandwich bake thing. It was super good. He like pre-made the sandwiches, slathered a little butter on it, and then you throw it in the oven for 20 minutes. And one of the halves of the pan had provolone cheese on it. I didn't know what I was eating. I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was actually really good. I'm coming a long way. I'm growing the palate a little bit. So
did you just say bougie cheese was good?
Yeah. The other side was pepper jack, I believe, which was also not bad. I actually kind of like that kick, if I'm being honest. So yeah, my cheese palate's developing a little bit here. Watch out, world. Who knows? We're
going to have to break you into some cheese during the month of May when you're here.
Oh, Lord.
Well, with that being said, Matt, I applaud your efforts. The next fan question comes from Asher's Racing Channel, a nice new and up-and-coming YouTube channel. Asher is, I think, 7 or 8 years old and interviewed Charlie Kimball on his YouTube channel in the last couple of days. It was a great interview. So, Asher, thank you for listening and thank you for the question. Do we expect any surprise driver announcements before the season starts?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Appreciate that. I think, before the season starts, I think yes. And I'm not specifically sure who or what, but Indianapolis 500, that always generates some weird headlines. And it seems like the last couple of years, there's been kind of a weird entry to come out of nowhere that surprised us all. So I wouldn't put it past a random entry with a random driver that we're not expecting to maybe surface for the Indianapolis 500. So I guess, given how this offseason's gone, I wouldn't rule anything out at this point.
I'm going to go with yes. There's going to be one more weird out of left field announcement before the season starts. Again, don't know who it's going to be. Maybe it's going to be that one NASCAR driver who keeps talking about wanting to do the double. I don't know. Maybe.
That's a good answer there, Jess. As much as I wanted to steal your answer, again, yes, I think we definitely will see a surprise driver announcement, maybe a surprise team announcement. Who knows? It's been a weird 4.5, 5 months at this point in terms of IndyCar offseason. I can't remember even before this show started having an offseason that really didn't have more than 2 weeks of quiet time at all. So yes, Asher, thank you for the great question. And I think your question will be a definite yes.
Right. So next we have a question from Mark Van Niekerk. He wants to know, outside of the drivers who have already participated in other series, who do we think would be most likely to see doing something like the Rolex 24 or the Chili Bowl that non-IndyCar fans might have never heard of? And just to give you guys kind of a reference, Rossi, Dixon, Pagano, Ferrucci, Herta, Davison, Hinchcliffe, Power, Daly, who was not on the list, have all participated in big events that are outside of IndyCar.
I should also preface that by saying Mark is a valued member of our Team Pit Lane community. And did also mention that we should exclude drivers like Joseph Newgarden and Felix Rosenqvist because they're already big names. So with that being said, I know I'm just going off of Mark's rules here. This is Mark's question.
So that's like the entire field. Then there's no answer. There's not a possibility.
So if I'm going not by Mark's rules, my answer would be Felix Rosenqvist. He's won at a lot of things, but going by Mark's rules, I would love to see Rinus VK do the Rolex 24. I'm sorry, Matt. I think I stole your answer.
No. I actually was going to say Marco Andretti because I'd love to see him put his money where his mouth is and try something other than IndyCar. Because I mean, he did Indy Lights, obviously. I don't know if he did an A1 GP once. Can we name anything else that Marco Andretti has ever raced other than IndyCar? I don't think it's been in the last decade. Do you have it pulled up or okay? So I have no idea. I mean, if he did like the Chili Bowl or something, or if he just went out there and did something where he could show fans like, hey, look at me. I can actually race once in a while. I've had a couple bad years in IndyCar, but I just went and did the Chili Bowl and finished 22nd in the B main or whatever. I think that would actually do a lot of good for him and maybe establish some credibility that he's severely lacking at the moment.
So before Jess goes, just answering Matt's question as I have researched it, the answer is yes. Well, first off, he did do an A1 Grand Prix back in 2008. He did the Rolex 24 in 2012.
So within the last decade.
Hold on. I've got more. He did the Australia Supercars in 2012, and in 2014 did one Formula E race.
Oh, that's right.
And where did he finish those?
What is how did he do?
In Formula E, he started 14th and finished 12th.
Womp womp.
Okay, well, gosh, I'm trying to think of somebody who fits these rules. I am struggling. I know that this doesn't fit the rules, but how about Marcus Ericsson? I think he would be kind of fun to watch and I mean, kind of honestly, either the Rolex or the Chili Bowl. I think he'd be fun. I think the Chili Bowl might be a little bit intimidating for him to start out with in dirt, but it would definitely be entertaining to watch. But I think the Rolex he would do really well. And so on that note, sorry that we couldn't follow your rules entirely, Mark, but we tried.
I think I did. Maybe, hopefully, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if Marco counts as that. But yeah, so not having raced outside of IndyCar in 5 years is kind of not great, if I'm being completely honest. But moving on, got a Facebook question here from JD Ellis wanting to know if fans will ever be happy with TV broadcasts.
No, because if everybody who's complaining about commercials or what was the complaint this weekend, Rutledge Wood, that means there are people out there who like him. So if they take Rutledge Wood off, then people are going to say, where's Rutledge Wood? So the short answer there is no. Fans as a whole will never be completely happy.
Correct. Yeah, no, they will not. The commercial thing, I think everybody was mad because they saved commercials towards the end of the race, but that's pretty typical because during a race, they tried to get the commercials in during yellow flag conditions. Well, there just wasn't any in this race. So they had to put them someplace and that made everybody mad. So it was, yeah, I mean, you're just never going to get everybody happy no matter what, including the outside of the US TV deals, whatever kind of TV deal you want to talk about, somebody's always going to be angry with it.
Yeah. And, I'm guilty of this too, but to put it this way, if a racing broadcast had 100 moments in the span of their broadcast and 99 of them went right, fans would still find a way to harp on that one thing that went wrong. So, I mean, I do that. Other people do that. It's kind of a common theme on social media. And it's kind of unfortunate, but people have to gripe about something sometimes. So I guess the answer is no. People will never be happy with TV broadcasts.
JD, thank you for the question and always chatting with me on Facebook about racing. Moving on, another Facebook question from Jim Kaiser. What do we expect from the upcoming COTA test, which takes place 2 weeks from today, from recording day? Who will pleasantly surprise and who will leave with more questions than answers?
I think the COTA test is going to be interesting, especially with the new track limit enforcement. So I think that means we should see times go down because they're probably definitely going to have to go slower during that portion of the track. So that's going to be interesting to see how much drivers are getting away with when they're practicing their laps. My surprise, I'll be honest, I think VK is going to be pretty fast. I don't know why. I just have a gut feeling about him. I think we're going to see maybe a Colton Herta-ish type pace out of him, which is going to be interesting for sure. It's just going to be a question of, can he keep everything together? And then as far as who's going to be leaving with more questions than answers, a little skeptical about Arrow McLaren and Schmidt-Peterson at the moment. The two rookie drivers, I mean, Pato was at COTA last year, and I believe Indy Lights ran at COTA, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know how well Askew did there, but it's going to be interesting to see if they come out of the gates guns blazing or if they are going to be a little more conservative / a little bit more down the charts.
I am going to kind of go totally different than you here. I think that the team that's going to leave with questions is going to be Ed Carpenter. I don't know why. I feel like they're going to struggle putting it all together in the end. And then a pleasant surprise. Man, that's always a tough one. I think I'm going to have to say Pato here. I feel like he's, going to want to kind of prove that he deserves this ride, so to speak. So I think he's going to come out with guns a-blazing and ready to go.
Good answer. Before I give my answer to Matt's question, Oliver Askew won both of the COTA races last year, so he did okay there. And I know both races, I think the second race wasn't particularly close, but the first race had some pretty good passes back and forth between him and Rinus VK. So who will surprise? I am going to, that's a good question. I'm going to say Zach Veach. I think Zach is going to put last year behind him and really start to improve. Maybe he'll have a good test. Again, it's just a test, so testing doesn't necessarily mean he's going to have a great year. But I think he's going to start out the year strong, and hopefully that leads to a better year than last year. Who will struggle? I'm wondering how the added weight of the aero screen will affect a driver like Takuma Sato. I'm wondering if that might kind of hamper his no attack, no chance style. And he might take a little bit longer to figure out, car setup or different things, how to handle the tires with the extra weight on the car.
I could see that. That's an interesting thought. All right. So our next and last fan question tonight comes from Andy Jones off of Twitter. He wants to know, who is IndyCar's next breakout star?
I will go first here. I'm going to take Kyle Kirkwood. I know he's not guaranteed to be in IndyCar since he's in Indy Lights this year. He just signed a deal with Andretti for the number 28 car, which I don't know what's that won the championship like the last 3 years now or 2 years. But since Kyle started his open wheel career down in the F1600 series in 2015, he's won 47 races. So he always wins. He had to come back and beat Rasmus Lind in the Indy Pro 2000 championship last year after back and forth for the first 2/3 of the year. But he did it and won, I think, 8 or 9 times last year. So he just wins. He wins everywhere he goes. So my pick is Kyle Kirkwood.
I'm going to go with Rasmus Lind. I don't have the statistics in front of me, unfortunately, but I just have been following him for a couple of years now, and it's just a name that's been constantly popping up and it's constantly succeeding. So really looking forward to seeing how his career pans out, and fingers crossed things go the right way for him. Hopefully one day we get to see a talent like him in IndyCar, because I just think you just got to have this feeling sometimes with some of these drivers that, their name keeps popping up, and all of a sudden they're in IndyCar and they're making a name for themselves. So fingers crossed for Rasmus.
I'll help you out there because I had his name up in case I didn't get to go first. Erasmus last year finished second in the standings, like I mentioned, and never finished outside of the top 5 in Indy Pro in any race. In F2000 in 2018, he finished second in the standings as well. So very good, consistent couple of years there. So I'm sorry, Jess, you can finish
real
with your
quick. Does he have a deal signed yet? Do you know?
No, but the rumor is that he will be up in Indy Lights most likely.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, so I'm actually going to pick somebody who's already in IndyCar. I'm going to pick Marcus Ericsson. I feel like moving to a more prominent team going to give him that extra push to kind of get over kind of little nerves that he had last year, which he did talk about a few times. And I also think that having a season under his belt now, he's going to be ready to go. So I think he is going to avoid that sophomore slump, and he's going to come out of the gates ready to fight.
Good answer. Definitely a good answer there. So we will continue on with Pitfalls, sponsored by our friends at Corsa Brew Coffee. Thanks to them for keeping us alive during the 24 hours this weekend. CorsaBrew.com, tailored to the motorsports world that captures the essence of speed, power, and adrenaline. Promo code PLP2020 for 10% off your order on their website.
And now it's time for Pit Lane Parlay's Pitfalls of the Week.
All right. Well, with that being said, speaking of the Rolex 24, my pitfall is going to be IMSA's weak penalty on the 55 Mazda car that had the contact with Helio Castroneves early in the race. I think about 4 hours in, if I'm not mistaken. My issue isn't that it was just a drive-through penalty, but it was just a drive-through penalty, and then Ryan Briscoe's penalty on pit lane towards the end of the race was a 60-second stop and hold for failing to stop at the red light on pit exit under a yellow flag. The two just don't seem to make any sense to me. Now, somebody with more IMSA experience can explain to me. Maybe it does make more sense, but from everybody I talked to, they were equally as baffled.
Yeah, kind of hard to have much more of an opinion than that until I kind of get the rules in front of me. But it seemed a little bit skewed to me also.
General rule of thumb for me is if Mike's confused, then I'm probably going to be confused. Kind of a measuring stick in life for me, but I don't think that's unfair to say. I'll go next. So bear with me on this one. This is in regards to some new rules that is going to be implemented at select NASCAR Xfinity and Truck Series Gander RV Outdoor Truck Series races. So it's not all of them. There is no way I can put this in English for you guys. So I'm just going to read directly from this article that was written by Holly Kane that was published on Reuters. So bear with me here. So basically, it's a new procedure for their pit stops and whatnot. It says, quote, during stage breaks, per the new rules package, the race field will be frozen when cautions come out at all these venues. Teams will then decide to pit for fuel and change 2 tires on a single stop. On the road courses, teams may either add fuel or pit for 4 tires per stop. I'm already confused. Moving on, 2 pit stops for a full service, 4 tires, and fuel will now be required at these select events. The pit stop must be completed with a designated time period, and the team roster for both series will include 8 crew members, including the crews that go over the wall. I'm still lost. Last paragraph. After pit stops occurring under these cautions, restarts will be established based on the orders of the cars at the time of the caution and the pit strategy used. Vehicles that did not pit would be at the front of the field, followed by vehicles that pitted once, followed by those that have pitted twice, and the free pass, wave around, and penalty cars. What was ever wrong with just normal pit stops? Why do we need these ridiculous rules about who can pit when, and if you do 2 tires this time, but it was only your first stop, then you go to the front, and if it was your second stop, but you did fuel twice, well, I think you get to go to 7th. What is this nonsense? Like, is this really what fans pay to go to see? And is this really going to enhance the racing at all? I mean, I've seen some weird NASCAR rules in my time. This has to almost go to the top of the list. I don't understand. Like, this is just, I just hope this all comes down, crumbling down one day, and they just go back to standard good old racing, because this is just getting absurd at this point.
I get, the original rumor, I think early in the offseason, was they were going to do away with pit stops. And I get why series want to do that in terms of, cost saving measures. That's fine. I'm so completely confused. Matt, that's a great pitfall. And maybe it's from a lack of sleep. It's not even from a lack of sleep over the past couple days, because this news came out before the last couple days, and I was equally as confused then. I honestly don't know what to say. I think I need like a NASCAR Xfinity and Truck Series pit stops for dummies type book written, because otherwise, I don't know where to go with this one. It's very confusing, and to the average fan who's going to be getting into motorsports, this is not going to help them or make it enjoyable.
So, not to beat a dead horse or anything, but it's not like we really need to memorize these rules, because NASCAR changes the rules mid-season anyways. So who knows what it's really going to be like after, I don't know, let's say 2 months of this not really working very well, because nobody understands what they're supposed to be doing. I don't get it at all. And that's it. All right. So quickly, mine. I don't have a lot to say about this, but the 500 ticket was unveiled today, and it did not have Norman Pagenaud on it, which I think pretty much everybody and their brother did not enjoy it. So yeah, that's it. I wanted Norman. Who didn't want Norman?
Hey, he got a commemorative ticket.
That's stupid.
My personal favorite about the ticket was that Alexander Rossi was on it. That's his second one, and for not winning the 500 twice, to be on 2 tickets is a pretty good accomplishment.
Yeah, I think Napa Racing tweeted something about that after the ticket announcement, but honestly, I'm kind of indifferent on this one, and I'm probably in the minority here. Didn't really make it. I would have loved the Norman ticket, don't get me wrong, but when I saw the ticket unveil and it was not him, that doesn't really bother me either way. I know I probably sound like a Debbie Downer here, so I'm sorry. Let's blame it on the 5 hours of sleep I've got in the last 4 days.
I'm with you on this one. It doesn't affect me. I mean, it would be cool to, I don't know. I like the commemorative ticket. I don't know. Maybe I'm the minority on that one, but I think it was a nice touch for sure.
But I mean, the picture of him and Norman, he would still be on the ticket. It's not like he wouldn't be on the ticket at all.
But the milk shot, or the drink in the milk, it's always such an epic shot. Although I kind of agree with him in his press conference where he said he was surprised they didn't get the one with the full milk on his face.
It's not always a milk shot, by the way, but that's...
No, I know. I'm just saying it's usually the most epic one of all the photographs after a victory is the milk shot of some kind.
I don't really care about the milk shot either.
I might need to research that and see how many are the milk shot, or just swigging a milk or something.
I'll give Jess this one. I don't really care at all about the milk shot. If I had to pick between the milk shot and Norman, I would choose Norman any day of the week. And that commemorative Norman poster, I hope they do sell commemorative ticket. I hope they do sell as a poster, because I will definitely buy one. I know my family is a big Norman Pagenaud fan, as is my dog. So yeah, I think that would be cool. But I do see where Jess and everybody is coming from on this one. It is one of the most iconic IndyCar pictures of 2019 easily.
Yeah, I think if we're being honest, I think probably the best photo they could have used if they didn't do a Norman one would probably be the one where he's on the front stretch celebrating, standing 2 feet on his car with his fists in the air as he's facing the crowd. I think that would have been really cool, but I still think the ticket looks pretty epic.
Well, with that being said, I think we're about to wrap this week up, unless anybody wants to jump in with any last minute thoughts. Nope. Cool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed all of the round the clock Rolex 24 coverage. I'll try to do that more often with some IMSA races, and maybe we'll spice it up with some IndyCar coverage like that this year as well, depending on my cell phone coverage at IndyCar tracks. That's always completely hit and miss. So with that being said, Jess, go ahead and sign us off.
And guys, keep your lug nuts tight.